Well, folks, here we are again. It's time for the weekly forecast. Before we get the forecast, we'll take a look back at this last week. Pretty simple, straight analysis. Very hot conditions. We did see a little bit of light scattered thunderstorm activity across the state, but a lot of it evaporated before it hit the surface. And of course, we've seen the problems in the Central Rockies with the forest fires, and we've seen some dry lightning strike fires here in Nebraska. And the situation is really getting out of control in terms of the temperatures. We've seen 116 degrees in McCook. Now, it's not an official record yet for McCook, but it most likely will because it's come from an automated surface observation system, and we got high quality data come from these stations. And if you think about it, the all-time state record was 118 degrees set at 4 locations in 1934 and 1936 across the state. So 2 degrees away from the all-time state record is pretty impressive. And that heat has moved eastward and caused a lot of problems in the eastern Corn Belt. We're starting to see some very ugly pictures coming out of southern Illinois, Indiana, and portions of Ohio. And with this heat and the pollination in progress across much of the central plains region and now approaching up into southern Nebraska, it's a real concern that the limited amount of moisture that is expected to be seen in this region is probably going to cause some unfortunate yield reductions to at least some of the dryland crop, and whether our irrigators can apply enough water under these high heat conditions remains to be seen. So let's take a look at a very ugly forecast as we go through this next 7 days and as we go to the upper air models. What I'll draw your attention to is that here's that ridge, and now it has weakened somewhat as it's flattened out in response to some waves trying to move over the top of it. And this is primarily our best hope for precipitation over the next 24 to 48 hours as a little wave moves around this ridge. Might generate some scattered thunderstorm activity, particularly across the northern extremes of the state and possibly northeastern Nebraska, but it's not a very good chance, 20 to 30% coverage at best. We're looking at highs maybe in the mid-90s across the north to around 105 across southwest Nebraska. Now as we go into tomorrow, this ridge starts to build, and we do see a little bit of cool air maybe holding in place across extreme northeastern Nebraska, where we may see highs in the low to mid 90s, but for the remainder of the state we're going to be pushing the mid to upper 90s, and again across the southwest we'll be looking at 105, possibly even 110 degrees. As we go into Monday, we see the ridge starting to build and expand eastward. We're going to be looking at exceptional temperatures. Eastern Nebraska 95 to 100. As we go into western Nebraska, widespread 100 to 105 degree readings with probably an isolated 110 degree reading. Unfortunately, not much in the way of any significant moisture expected. It looks like it's going to stay up in the Dakotas. As we go into Tuesday, pretty much status quo, same type of temperature regime, mid to upper 90s east, 105 west. As we go into Wednesday, which of course is the 4th of July, widespread heat across the region, 95 to 100 east, 105 west, and that heat's going to expand into the eastern Corn Belt as the week progresses. We'll be looking at the same thing on Thursday, very hot conditions, and the same thing on Friday, a broken record. 8 to 14 day forecast takes us from the end of next week to the following Tuesday. The hot conditions continue, and really no significant relief in terms of precipitation.